She arrived with a black card in her palm and a calendar alert for a $2.8 billion signature 2 hours away. The marble gleamed. The smiles did not. A sideways glance. A smothered laugh. The kind of polite disbelief that cuts sharper than words. She was a black woman who had conquered boardrooms, yet in that lobby she was treated like a trespasser to her own success. What the staff didn't know was simple. Their brand lived under the same empire courting her signature. One careless moment would rewrite the night, the deal, and the message it sent. How much can a single check-in cost? Her name was Ayana Cross, a founder who built her company from a borrowed desk and a cracked laptop into a global platform trusted by governments, hospitals, and banks. She had learned to turn doubt into jet fuel, to translate numbers into vision, to carry a boardroom without ever raising her voice. In the city that made giants and chewed them up, she had learned to survive with grace and win with precision. Tonight was meant to be ceremonial. The terms were locked, the lawyers had finished their midnight emails, and the papers would be signed in a private lounge at the hotel's top floor. The deal, $2.8 billion, would scale her technology across continents and bring new jobs, new opportunities, a broader horizon than even her boldest forecasts had imagined. The brand hosting it all was a crown jewel of the conglomerate she'd partner with, the kind of place where every surface looked expensive and every corner smelled like polished success. She arrived straight from the airport, suitcase rolling, blazer still crisp despite the flight. Her assistant had confirmed the suite, the car, the security detail, the little details that made big nights run quietly. All she needed was a key card, a shower, 10 minutes to breathe, and then history would lock into place. She stepped to the counter, presented her black card, and felt the air change. A pause that said more than words. A laugh from somewhere down the desk. An appraisal not of credit, but of belonging. She could read the room the way others read spreadsheets, and the numbers here were trending the wrong way. Before we continue, a quick request. Our dream is to reach 1,000 subscribers, and we can't do it without you. If the story resonates, please subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and stay till the end for the final twist. Now back to the story. The first sign was procedural but pointed. The ID was inspected as if it had been printed that morning on a home machine. The card was held to the light for longer than necessary. A scanner hummed, stopped, hummed again. A second staffer drifted close, casual as a shadow, eyes narrowed with a curiosity that had little to do with customer service. Ayana had seen this script play out in airports, boutiques, even lobbies where her name was on the donor wall. Tonight, it stung differently. She was on their marble, in their flagship, under their cameras, wearing the success that should have been unassailable. And yet it was being weighed and measured against an invisible standard that said she ought to prove it all over again. Guests lined up behind her. Some watched, some looked away. A pair near the concierge exchanged looks and stifled a laugh when the card didn't swipe cleanly the first time. The terminal beeped not with insufficiency, but with suspicion, an extra verification that seemed reserved for certain guests and certain narratives. Her reservation file was thick with status indicators, years of patronage, top-tier loyalty, private notes about service preferences and security protocol. Still, the front desk insisted on an unusually large deposit, an additional verification call, and a manager's approval for what should have been routine. The manager arrived with a professional smile that didn't reach his eyes and a list of conditions that said what his mouth didn't need to. Somewhere in the lobby, a phone lifted, recording at waist height. Somewhere else, a whisper threaded through the air like static. The lights felt brighter. The polished floor felt colder. Ayana measured her breath the way she measured risk, minute by minute, deciding where to spend it. On the wall behind the desk, a brass crest caught the light, the emblem of the very conglomerate courting her signature. She recognized it from the decks and diligence calls, the slide that touted a commitment to innovation, diversity, and global impact. Tonight, those words hung hollow beside her lived experience at their most visible property. Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Contract signing, 90 minutes. Another buzz. A draft press release celebrating a partnership built on shared values. She considered the copy, then glanced at the courtesy shuttle schedule, the concierge's eyes, the way the deposit requirement grew with each minute she stood still. Security wandered closer, not hostile, but watchful. The manager asked for a different card, a different method, a different proof that the proof in her hand could stand taller than a doubt he had already decided to entertain. A bell cart rolled by in a hush that sounded suspiciously like judgment. Anna didn't argue. She thought about the engineers who had stayed late to squash bugs, the nurses who would use her platform to shave minutes off emergencies, the interns who sent their first paychecks home. She thought about the message they all needed to live by, that ownership means choosing where your value shows up and where it refuses to. She checked her watch, then her inbox. The agreement waited, a digital door she could open with a fingertip. She imagined signing it after this, smiling for photos under chandeliers that cast long shadows. She imagined thanking a brand that had told her, without saying it, exactly what kind of guest it preferred to trust on site. At the desk, her black card rested against the counter, as unquestionable as the ledger behind it, and yet questioned still. Felt less like payment and more like a test. The lobby hummed with elegance and exclusion, and under that hum, a decision gathered itself. She picked up the card, not to offer it again, but to reclaim what it represented. A lifetime of receipts, a ledger of late nights and early flights. Proof, yes, but proof that needed no permission. The deal did not require this hotel. The partnership did not require this moment. But if she accepted it, signed anyway, posed anyway, smiled anyway, she would be underwriting a message that contradicted everything her company stood for. She stepped a few paces away from the desk, somewhere between the staircase that led to the private lounge and the revolving doors that led back into the night. Her phone felt cool against her palm. The draft press release still waited, full of polished words and careful promises. Another document waited too, shorter, sharper, decisive. Years of training made the motion smooth. She opened the channel reserved for board-level decisions. She weighed the risk she had been trained to mitigate against the values she refused to negotiate. She thought of every time someone had asked for more proof while holding less truth. The cancellation moved from her screen to the cloud, then from the cloud to the inboxes that governed hundreds of thousands of jobs and evaluation with more zeros than any lobby scoreboard could display. A notification ticked across the top. Message sent. Another followed. Delivery confirmed. Across the room, the manager's phone vibrated. Not the front desk terminal. Not the concierge landline. His personal device face down on a ledger of nightly reports. He glanced at it, then at the crest on the wall, then at Ayana with a dawning understanding that had nothing to do with check-in policy. The lobby kept humming, glasses clinking in the bar, a pianist drawing gold out of a baby grand, wheels whispering on stone. But a fault line had shifted. She did not raise her voice. She did not explain. She placed the black card back in her wallet, lifted her suitcase handle, and turned toward the doors. Outside, the city exhaled. In her inbox, a flurry began. Questions, alarms, sudden urgency from people who had been unhurried a minute ago. She walked into the evening air with the same calm she brought to boardrooms, leaving behind a front desk that had mistaken proximity to power for power itself. The calls came quickly, some contrite, some incredulous. Statements were drafted, explanations assembled, policies cited and then revised in the span of a single news cycle. Internal memos apologized for misunderstandings, miscommunications, mis-everythings that named no one and said nothing. Training modules were commissioned overnight. Photo ops were proposed. Invitations were extended to make amends beneath chandeliers that had already cast their verdict. Ayana declined them with the same quiet that had refused to perform at the counter. Her company issued a brief note affirming its withdrawal and its standards for partnership, standards that protected not just profit but principle. A clause was added to future deals that required first-hand audits of the culture behind the crest, not just the numbers under it. The story rippled, not because of spectacle but because of math that finally accounted for dignity. Teams that built her platform saw the message beneath the decision. They were building a world where a check-in desk could not shrink a lifetime of work. Young founders took notes on a different kind of due diligence. Executives who fancied themselves progressive learned that values are not a paragraph in a press release. They are the price you are willing to pay when it is inconvenient. The hotel chain moved fast, then faster. Leadership turned over at a speed that suggested urgency had found its footing. Community scholarships were announced, not as penance but as policy. Yet Ayana understood something essential. Systemic change is not a headline. It is a habit. She invested in hospitality training programs run by experts who knew the difference between courtesy and condescension, between service and suspicion. She funded internships that brought new voices into rooms that decided what welcome would look like. Weeks later, another flight landed. Another lobby gleamed. Another crest caught the light. She checked into a different hotel, one whose staff looked her in the eye and saw a guest, not a challenge. The key card slid, the door clicked, and the room opened to a skyline that had not changed, but something in it felt newly possible. Success is not just what you sign. It's what you refuse to sign. If a single check-in can cost billions, what would it be worth for all of us to check our assumptions at the door?